our chair and vice chair, who were unable to participate today, and pleased to be here in their stead. So thank you all for your participation. And Jen, would you like to do the roll call first?
Sure, happy to. Good morning, everybody. I think I caught most folks. Actually, Deb, for the sake of time, why don't we just ask folks if they're here to acknowledge themselves in the chat, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
That would be great. So if you could all put your name in the chat, that would be great.
Thank you. Guests as well.
Okay, great. So moving on, a few announcements before we get started this morning. First, as you learned last week via an email from Jen, who had many good things in that email, Jasmine Herrera, our former executive assistant, has moved on to Grant Associates to be a licensed social worker in our EARN Center in Wilkinsburg. And as you remember from our last meeting, having licensed social workers in the EARN centers, meeting with clients at least monthly, is a new requirement of EARN. So this opportunity presented Jasmine with the chance to use her training and education while leveraging her knowledge of the workforce system. So we certainly wish her well and look forward to learning more about the success of these additional services within the centers. I'm pleased to introduce LaDonna Dutton, our new executive assistant. LaDonna comes to us from CMU Software Engineering Institute, where she recently served as a senior administrative assistant. She has a master's certificate in project management from the Katz School of Business and has stepped in. LaDonna has stepped into the role with grace and is proving herself to be a valuable member of the team. Please join me in welcoming her to Partner4Work. Is LaDonna on the call this morning? No. Yes. You are. I just waved to everybody.
Thank you.
Great. Welcome. Welcome. It's also my pleasure to introduce Katie Davis, the newest addition to our board of directors. Katie is the new vice president of external affairs at Duquesne Light and has already taken an active role at DQE, but it's also with Partner4Work, particularly with our Reignite initiative. I had the pleasure of meeting Katie and learned she previously sat on a workforce board in her native California. So I was pleased to forward her name to the governance committee for consideration. The committee unanimously agreed to advance Katie for final nomination and appointment, and please join me in welcoming Katie to Partner4Work and thanking her for her willingness to serve. Earl, you want to say, oh, you're just waving at
waving
Katie.
to Katie.
I thought
Welcome
you wanted to say something, but Earl and I did have the pleasure of meeting with her, and Katie, we're very pleased that you've joined the board. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to the consent agenda. So there are several items on our consent agenda this morning, all of which were included in your board book and are on the screen. Jen, are you going to?
I am. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty this morning. I'm going to put the screen up, I beg your pardon, the deck up right now.
Okay, that's fine. I can also, let's see if I can pull this up.
All hands on deck.
Yeah, just getting another.
I couldn't resist. It was just standing right there. So.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody.
That's okay. We're there we go. Okay, wonderful. Okay.
Can you see everything?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes. So you can advance it, Jen?
I'm
Get there.
trying.
Right.
I'm trying.
Okay, sorry.
There we go.
All right.
Oops.
Okay, so first we want to approve the minutes from our last meeting, the minutes from the June 26th, 2020 meeting. Are there any comments, revisions, additions to those minutes? If not, can I ask for a motion for their approval?
So moved.
That was Dave Copeland. A second?
Second.
Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
against or abstentions? Okay, great. So moving on, we want to approve the executive session minutes from May 29th, 2020 and June 26th, 2020. Again, I'll ask for a motion of approval. Is there a motion to approve? Do we
So
usually?
moved.
Move.
Point of clarification.
Yeah, I was going to say, do we usually
Did
approve?
we just,
these?
yeah, we just do this, can we just make, can I revise my motion
Yes.
to accept all of these at once?
Perfect, perfect. Let's just do all at once. Thank you for
I
clarifying.
revised that
And
motion.
you're right. You are absolutely right.
Thank you.
I'm not as facile in this consent agenda job. So you're absolutely right. Let's have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Can I have a motion?
So move.
Great, thanks, Quentin. Second?
Second.
Mark Rendell, second.
Great. Any further discussion
Yeah,
or questions?
There's one change on the final acceptance of the $800,000 from Department of Labor Pathway Home. It's actually not from the Department of Labor. It's through Midwest Urban Strategies. We're a subcontractor to them on their Department of Labor grant.
Okay,
We should amend that.
okay, great.
But the dollar amount doesn't change.
Okay. So we've heard the change in the source of where the funding is from. It's through Midwest Urban Strategies. All right, with that amendment, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions from these actions? Okay, wonderful. So we're moving on. Great. So I'm going to ask Steve Macera and Kristen Kramer for the Partner4Work Finance and Personnel Committee report. So Steve, I'll turn it over to you.
Come on, Steve.
No Kristen's there.
Sorry
so-
about that. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
We got you.
6 months into this, you'd think I know if I'm muted or not, but sorry about that. We did have a couple of meetings in the past couple of weeks to review the finances and personnel issues. And we tweaked the dashboard, and I think it's, for the board, I think it's much easier to read for those non-finance people like me, just kind of a high overview of, are we in a good spot, okay spot, poor spot, I think is very helpful. And I think this does that. So Kristen and her team have done a really good job. So you're seeing the new dashboard in front of you. You could see we're in a very good cash position, which is really great. So that's about the extent of my finance detail I can give you. So I'll let Kristen take it from here.
Oh, thanks, Steve. Yeah, so we are very excited about the new dashboard report, and we'll take a few minutes to review it. So you can see our cash balance at the end of the year here is around $7 million. And that has increased primarily due to our temporarily restricted funds, which you could see this last quarter definitely has increased. From April through June, it's increased about $2.2 million. Funding received from the Hillman Foundation, JP Morgan, Chase, BNY Mellon, RK Mellon are just a few of the funding sources received attributed to this increase. Going down to the accounts receivable, primarily you can kind of see the large blue area there is 89%, and that makes up receivables that are less than 30 days old, which is pretty good. Currently right now, our over 90 days is 5%, and we are working to collect the items that are over 90 days. We have settlement agreements signed with the OVR in the state for about $90,000 of this, and the rest of it, some of it is just a slow pay. Some of the liabilities worth mentioning are our accounts payable, which are currently sitting at $4.1 million, and of this, 3.9 are due to our subrecipients. We also received Paycheck Protection program loan from the SBA in the amount of $502,600, of which we have spent $260,000 this fiscal year, and that has helped reduce wages, benefits, and rent expenses. The remaining $242,000 is a liability at the end of June 2020 and will be used by September 30th of this year. Going down to the bottom under the net income, we currently have a net income of $1.1 million, and this is primarily due to the temporarily restricted funds for the revenue being recognized as revenue this fiscal year. Jen, would you please go to the next slide? Thank you. So this is a little overview of our income and expenses. And our total expenditures for the fiscal year were around $23.4 million, as you can see in this pie chart. And you could see also through the pie chart the diversity of our programs. The staple programs are our TANF and our city and county WIOA. These funds make up about 50% of our programs. We also have a national dislocated worker program with the Midwest Urban Strategies and the Learn and Earn programs, which each of them make up 16%. The dark orange and the green here show that part of the pie chart. Our M&G costs remain consistent at 7% for the year. The chart down below is an expense comparison from fiscal year 18-19 versus 19-20. And looking at it, you could see our WIOA grants are $2.2 million less than prior year. And this is primarily due to us receiving the National Dislocated Worker Grant and also due to the slow last quarter with COVID. Our federal WIOA and MUS grants have increased $3.4 million, which offset the drop in the WIOA expenditures. And this increase is due to two new grants, the National Dislocated Worker Grant and the STRIVE grant, both of which started late in 2018, but have taken a little while to ramp up. Learn and Earn funds increased about $1 million due to additional support from TANF funding during the 2019 summer. We'll see expenditures for Learn and Earn this year hitting the first quarter of 2020. We want to note that this was the first year for the new ISY and OSY contract cycles with our providers, and we have been able to contract more funds with them. Are there any questions on the financial report?
Yeah, Kristen, this is Carrie. First of all, really nice job. I love this new dashboard, and I especially like the way these two charts work together. It answered lots of my questions. I did have a question though on the receivables from the previous page.
Yes.
And that's a big amount of short-term receivables, and I'm just curious what's in there.
The way our receivables work, Carrie, is as we're receiving expenses in from our providers, we bill them out. So it's kind of like almost everything we owe to our subrecipients as we receive the money and we pay it out. But that's kind of at the year end, you know, there's a lot of folks that are billing us late into the after the fiscal year ends, so everything gets backdated to 6/30, so that makes our current receivables a little bit larger than normal.
Huh.
Does that answer your question?
I think so. Thanks.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, Carrie, keep in mind with Learn and Earn as well. You know how that you tend to get invoiced later in the summer. So that's just one example. But if there's more questions, we can always break that out. Although it's a lot to break out.
Right. I figured there was a reason why it was so large.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are there other questions for Earl, Steve, Kristen on the financial report?
Deb, I just want to thank Steve and the committee members who come together quickly and went from one of our smaller committees to a decent sized committee that's well populated, and Kristen for her hard work. So Thank you, Steve, and the committee, and Kristen for putting this all together.
Thanks, Earl. And absolutely to the committee members, my goodness, it's been great. So thanks.
And I want to say that my congratulations to you. I mean, this is a strong position, and things are looking very bright. So thank you, Earl, and to the team, and Kristen for the reporting. I think this looks great.
Thank you. And I do want to thank definitely the Finance Committee for all their support, because we've really dug into this report to get it right and get it so that it's usable for the board.
And I'm seeing lots of nice chats here about other board members stating that it is very easy to read and follow. So that's great. Thanks again.
Thank you,
Steve and Kristen, for your leadership on this.
Before we conclude our committee report, I wanted to provide a short update on the personnel side.
Yes.
As you remember from our last meeting, we were in the process of revising and revamping our internal policies and procedures, which includes our personnel policies. Members who have been part of the board for a while may remember our last significant update for our personnel policies was last conducted in 2014. So our policies have not kept pace with the growth of our organization. While we will immediately be putting some guidance and policies in place, particularly around the use of social media, the establishment of catastrophic leave bank, and some other HR policies, we're most pleased to share that thanks to Dave Copeland, we will leverage his experience and that of his students to give us a comprehensive review and a set of recommendations on a new employee handbook. We will expect that the result of this work will be produced in the spring, and we can thank Dave for his generous and most needed expertise. Are there any questions?
Well, that's great, Dave. Thanks for your efforts. I know it's needed, and this will be really very helpful to Earl and the team.
David.
Okay. Are there any other questions or final points for finance or human resources? If not, I'm going to move on to the governance and youth committee report. And I just wanted to say for the record that we do have a quorum. So just wanted to let everyone know that. So I just want to give you a very quick update on governance in addition to what we discussed earlier. You'll remember from Jen's email last week that Natalie Bell left the board and UPMC late last month, and LaTrenda Cheryl resigned from the executive committee about 2 weeks ago. LaTrenda was the member at large, which is a required seat on the committee. So the governance committee is going to meet later this month to discuss filling these seats and begin looking at term expirations and extensions, as well as take steps toward developing a standing committee to oversee adult programs. So I look forward to sharing more about that work, as well as introducing new members when we meet for our annual meeting in December. Any questions or comments for governance or additions? Okay, so moving on to the youth report. As you all know, Learn and Earn 2020 concluded in early August. And again, thanks to close coordination with Allegheny County. Again, many thanks to Mark Cherna and his team, and to the city of Pittsburgh. Again, many thanks to Majestic and all the staff there, and the very hard work of the Partner4Work team under Susie Pushkar's leadership. We offered every eligible youth who applied for Learn and Earn a job this summer and served more than 1,600 youth, which was really amazing considering the pandemic. So this was truly a team effort and an incredible feat. About 65% of the placements were virtual this year, and providers learned new skills in project-based learning and using Google Classroom. Youth learned entrepreneurial skills, taught digital skills to senior citizens, and completed scores of other incredible projects. The Learn and Earn Committee now turns its work, actually at 10 a.m. this morning after our meeting, to procuring for the next 4-year cycle of Learn and Earn programming. So we last procured for the program, the full program, and the application support centers in 2016. These contracts are 4 years long, and we'll release an RFP to choose new providers next month. The Learn and Earn Advisory Committee, as I said, will meet later this morning to I guess, to discuss all of this. And so very, again, please, congratulations to the team and the city and county. That was just great, great work. Anything you want to say about that, Earl?
Once I mute myself, no, just echoing what Deb said. Just in spite of everything that's happening and what happened this summer, the fact we're able to get a program off the ground, offer assignment to every kid, have really strong partners with virtual capabilities. Just, it's amazing of what was accomplished this summer, and the fact that we were able to put over $1,100 into each kid's pocket and to each family. Just amazing. So thank you to the committee, Susie and the team for all the hard work and ingenuity to make this happen.
Great, thank you. So Jen, just quickly moving on to year-round youth programming. Program Year 19, or I should say Project Year 19 programming has finished. We're leveraging the lessons learned from Learn and Earn to ensure providers are able to meet the needs of young people while the pandemic does continue. Providers have opted to roll over a larger share of youth than normal to the 2020 year programming to ensure that they are supported in their workforce development during the pandemic. And providers will continue to work with youth who have not yet found employment to connect them into the labor market. We've received outcome data from the state for youth exiting the program between July of 2018 and June of 2019. So I'm pleased to report we have met our official performance measures for youth programs under WIOA. The U.S. Department of Labor has decided not to issue a waiver on performance for WIOA programs given COVID. Having met the outcomes for Program Year 19 means that even if we do not meet the WIOA outcomes this year due to COVID, we will not face sanctions. But I'm optimistic that we're fine. In addition to this work, we're working closely with the city and the Pittsburgh Public Schools to create a job shadowing program for careers in the public sector for students enrolled in CTE. We hope to, and I should say career and technical education for our newer board members. We hope to launch programming in early 2021. So are there any questions on, again, great work going on in youth programming before I turn this report over to Susie for adult programs? Okay, hearing none, thanks again. Great work going on, and thank you to Earl, Susie, and the team for their efforts.
Thanks,
Susie,
Debbie.
you're on.
All right, I'm going to kind of breeze through this to try to make up a little bit of time. So Debbie mentioned that we met outcomes for youth measures. We have also met outcomes for adult and dislocated worker measures for WIOA. So the same kind of sigh of relief where if we don't meet outcome measures due to COVID for adult and dislocated worker, that still applies under our adult and dislocated worker programming. So I just wanted to give everyone a little bit of an update on where we've been since March of this year and where we're going in October, November, and December. So as you all know, or many of you know, those who have been here since March, then PA Career Links closed to in-person services in March. They've been delivering virtual services, but the Career Link offices themselves have been closed to the public. They both, at the Downtown Center and at the Career Link East office, reopened on Monday to services by appointment only. Each office has been seeing about 15 people each day. So that's a significant decrease from pre-pandemic numbers, but other CareerLink offices around the state are reporting that they're seeing about 5 people coming in every day. So we're seeing kind of 3 times that amount, which is great news for our system. And you'll see in a little bit how the numbers have changed between this time this year and this time last year. So we are also working to ensure that training and case management and supportive services continue through the pandemic. And are looking at creating some new training options that are cohort-based and very closely tied to an employer. There's an RFP on the street right now that we would love if you share with your networks to find training opportunities that have employer buy-in. And so what we're really looking for through those training opportunities is an employer advising on curriculum, guaranteeing a hire or preferential interviewing at the end of the training program, and really being bought into the training program. We've had great success with programs like BankWorks and Intro to the Trades with this model. And so that's what we're kind of trying to replicate with this additional training cohort. And then the other thing that we're working on right now, and that we're partnering with Allegheny County on, and as well as the city of Pittsburgh, is to expand the services that are available through the PA Career Link to additional populations. And so with that, we are looking to partner with organizations that are not downtown and not in Forest Hills, that see a good number of job seekers coming through their doors that might be coming through for other reasons. So they might be accessing services through the food bank. It doesn't make sense for the food bank to start to provide employment services as the food bank, but it does make sense for them to partner with PA Career Link, so that if someone's coming in for food and they also need employment services, those individuals know where to go and there's a streamlined service there. Jen, can you go to the next slide? So the other thing that is continuing is the hub, which is the virtual hub of services that PA Career Link has built here in Allegheny County and the city of Pittsburgh. So our two Title I providers, as well as the state staff who provide RESEA, which is the reemployment services for individuals who are receiving unemployment compensation, as well as Veteran Services, Carrie and her team, and the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation have worked to build out a website so that individuals can continue to receive virtual services from wherever they are. It's mobile enabled. There's a link to it on the PA Career Link website, and we encourage you to go and check it out. So the services are available still in person at this point in time, but we're still pushing for individuals in order to make sure that we're limiting the amount of people that come into the PA Career Link Center, protecting staff and caseworkers. So we're still pushing services to be available online whenever we can. You can go to the next slide, Jen. And so there are videos on the hub, and we're working to, starting this week, to connect the hub with some of the Reignite and Skills Build initiatives that you'll hear about, so that the CareerLink staff aren't recreating the wheel. They're not creating new trainings and opportunities for things that already exist. They're taking things that exist and kind of creating a curriculum for job seekers, and kind of putting them all and packaging them so job seekers don't have to go to multiple places in order to get these services. And next slide, Jen. Thank you. So you'll see here the numbers from this time this year, July and August, and then this time last year. And we chose July 1 because that's really when the job seekers started to come back to looking for jobs in earnest. The Allegheny County moved from red to green at that point in time. And so we thought that was a good measure of where to look at. It's important to note when you look at these numbers that the numbers from July and August of last year are the first 2 months of our two new Title I contractors, Grant and Dynamic. So those are lower than what we would normally see in a year when the providers were kind of operating on all cylinders and not learning our system as well as kind of trying to serve job seekers as they are. But despite seeing fewer registrations this time this year than last year, we've seen an increase in placement. And so what that tells me, A, is that the job market is picking back up, and we're seeing that in the kind of macro trends. But we're also seeing that Grant and Dynamic are really starting to understand this job market. They're really starting to develop those relationships with job seekers and businesses, and it's starting to pay off in the number of job placements that we're seeing. We're also seeing that on the adult side, the median hourly wage is down slightly this year than it was last year, but overall, the median wage for all job seekers placed is considerably higher this year than it was last year when you factor in those dislocated worker placements. The self-sufficiency wage was $15.01 last year. It's $15.34 this year, and that's based on the federal poverty line. And we're also seeing that more of the job seekers that are going through the system are earning an industry recognized credential. And so in part, this is based off of our National Dislocated Worker Grant and being able to funnel more job seekers through placement. In part, it's based off of investing in trainings like Intro to the Trades and BankWorks, where you have an industry that is really behind a training. And in part, it's the fact that there were a lot of job seekers that really were interested in finding additional training during the months of May and June rather than going right into work. And so they were exiting from their services in July and August. I think there's one more slide, Jen, if you want to go to that, and then I'll stop for questions. So I think there are actually two more slides now that I look at this one. So I think the other thing that's really important is to talk about the business services that are happening at CareerLink. And this is beyond just the CareerLink, it's the system of business services. And so one of the things that has been, frankly, a source of frustration for me since I started at Partner4Work is that the system of record for WIOA programs is called CWDS. And CWDS has every job seeker who registers after they've received unemployment compensation. If they're looking for a job, that's where all of those job seekers' data go. And every job order that every business puts in, they're looking for this candidate, that also goes into CWDS. And it seems like from the outside looking in, you'd be able to do a better job of matching. Here are the job seekers, here are the employers, how do we connect them? But we've never been able to figure out how to do that. We think we're on the path to doing that starting this spring. And so what we've been able to do is build some new queries and some new reports that allow us to understand better who are the job seekers that are going to be a good match for certain kinds of jobs. The other thing that we've gotten better at is asking better questions of employers. And so identifying, for instance, through our work with BankWorks, that an individual who has experience in cash handling in retail or food service can be a really great candidate for a financial services industry job because they've handled cash, they know how to deal with the general public, and if they can get a couple of skills in the financial services industry, that's a really easy kind of shift for them to make in a lot of cases. And so we have a kind of pipeline team strategy that we've rolled out with Dynamic and Grant to be able to do some additional job matching and talent matching, and we're seeing that we're getting more enrollments into programming as a result of that. We've also done a significant amount of career fairs with organizations including Amazon, Allegheny Health Network, BNY Mellon, Dollar Bank. And so these are for jobs that they have available. We've got a better strategy right now than we did this time last year for ensuring that businesses are able to get the talent that they need and that job seekers are really prepared for virtual hiring events and job fairs. And then on the next slide, you'll see our OJT work. And so OJT is on the job training. These are dollars that we have and a tool that we have under WIOA where we are able to help employers with the cost of training someone that they have newly hired to make sure that they are able to, a job seeker is able to start work and then get training while they're on the job. And so we're on track right now to be able to exceed the number of OJTs that we did last year. We're also making a concerted effort, and Earl met this week with many of our partners to figure out how do we use OJTs more effectively. And frankly, you know, one thing that I'll never shy away from is that we are bureaucrats, right? We have to do a lot of paperwork. So we're trying to figure out ways that we can streamline that paperwork, that we can make it easier for employers to use these tools, and we can shorten the time period it takes from an employer posting a job to when they actually hire a candidate so that they're getting the right person into that job. So with that, I'll stop and see if anyone has any questions about the youth system or the adult system, sorry.
Are there any career fairs that specifically focus on or target minority hires, African-American hires, and are we connected with those? Are those effective, or what's our experience with those career fairs, if there are some?
Yeah, so most of the career fairs that have happened in the recent past, so the past 2 or 3 months, have been specific to an employer. By its nature, the PA CareerLink, the vast majority of individuals that are going through that system are minorities that are being served by the PA CareerLink. And so a lot of the individuals that are participating in the job fairs are minority candidates. We have done specific job fairs related to almost affinity groups. We've done a job fair around reentry individuals, so individuals who have been involved in the criminal justice system and finding employers that are willing and interested in hiring those individuals. We've done job fairs related to immigrants and internationals. And so that's certainly something, Dr. Washington, that we can consider looking at as we especially expand our work with MVWE businesses and small businesses in particular.
Great point. Other questions or discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to, in the CareerLink system, in Pennsylvania right now, I'm told there's still, 100,000 or better people whose UC claims going back to the beginning of the pandemic and the CARES Act are still tied up in the system. And I was wondering whether or not in Western Pennsylvania, our WIB could play a positive role in expediting that and creating some sort of a conduit. People can't even get through to the state. The phones aren't being answered. We have people who simply haven't gotten any money at all over the entire summer. I understand that, the state folks are working as hard as they can. My question is there a way for us to play a positive role now that the centers are reopening to augment that and to speed that along?
That's a great question, Ike. So the short answer is kind of. And so one thing that happened this week is that someone came into the center and needed assistance with their unemployment compensation claim. It turned out they had forgotten their password, and our staff was able to help them process that claim through helping them figure out what to click on, right, within the system itself. And so that claim then was processed and moved along. The longer answer is that the unemployment compensation system is a partner in CareerLink, but it's overseen by the state. And we as workforce development boards across the Commonwealth have said since the beginning of the pandemic, anything that we can do, we are happy and willing to do in order to help process claims or move things along, but it is a completely separate system. And so the state has tapped into additional workers from the Wagner-Pizer staff. So that's the state staff who operate in the CareerLink who are not unemployment compensation staff. So they've been taken out of their kind of Wagner-Pizer job, and our Title I staff have been able to backfill some of that work. So that's how we've been able to assist. But the state has not at this point allowed for workforce boards to play a larger role in the unemployment compensation system.
Can we make a renewed effort on that? Maybe with some very specific suggestions as to what the board might be willing to do?
Yeah, we've done that through PWDA, the Pennsylvania Workforce Development Association, and made those specific efforts. I think that our best way of affecting that system here locally is to help job seekers as they come into the PA CareerLink. But it's really the role of the unemployment compensation system to handle those claims, and not something that we've been able to break into.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just add, this is Dave. This has been, Ike raises a really important question. A great number of people that we serve in social services have experienced what he points out. As Susie states, it's a state system issue, and it does sort of give us a really clear insight that some of our largest systems that have been in play they're not designed to actually get a person through with any speed. They're slow and bureaucratic. I mean, again, just to give everyone a real life illustration, someone who applied for unemployment in the middle of March, the two-path prong, the Pennsylvania, the pandemic unemployment assistance and the Pennsylvania unemployment, again, had to go through one path to then get to the other path, which means they had to wait 6 weeks to figure out that the one path wasn't the right fit for them, to then get to the other path. And again, that in and of itself is a system design flaw from the front end. And so, I just want to add that no person power to help somebody through that would solve a dilemma like that pushed somebody's then second. So we had people who applied in March who didn't hear anything back from their full application until July and August. That just, you know, so, but raw people power wouldn't have solved that. The system on the front end is poorly designed. And I mean, I myself got involved with some of my staff to see this firsthand on several of our folks. And, you know, and I sent emails to Dylan because, you know, he could inquire about the process and policy on our behalf at the state effort. I want to say he was fantastic at getting back to me about that and trying to get the answers, but it definitely revealed a very flawed system at multiple steps.
Thanks, Dave. I think Frank Stasko is on the line and would like to make a comment, or Frank, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, I don't disagree with everything that's been said so far. It's a very frustrating process with a lot of bureaucracy built into the process, and I don't understand them all because I'm not unemployment. But back to what Susie had said, we have taken what the steps that we could on the workforce side to try to supplement unemployment, to try to expedite and resolve many of the smaller issues. We're very restricted as to what my staff are permitted to do. Unemployment has, you know, extended some training, and we actually have a number of folks that we have hired over the years that have some experience in unemployment. And even with that, we're very restricted as to what specific tasks and functions we're permitted to do and what actions we are permitted to take. That said, however, every office as far as I know across the state, but certainly every office that I can verify in Southwestern PA has a process in place where my staff and partner staff, Title I, greeters, anybody in the career link can take information from a claimant, whether it's over the phone or walk-in or any other way that we get that information, email, and we can provide a considerable amount of assistance, and we resolve a lot of the smaller issues, those that we're allowed to handle. So I think that helps, but it doesn't resolve every issue, and certainly we're not in the adjudication process at all. We're well below that, but we do try to handle a number of the, I'll say, low-hanging fruit for claimants that are waiting for a lot of simple things like resetting their passwords or lost their debit card to extract money from their account, or you know, any number of tasks. There are about 15 tasks that we're permitted to do. So there have been literally thousands of folks that have been assisted through that process. And we take that information on the front end, whoever's answering the phone, they plug that into a spreadsheet, and then we have at least one, and in some case a couple of our staff that are working behind the scenes in the UC system to try to resolve some of these discrepancies. And the ones that we cannot resolve because either they're above our skill set or we're not permitted, the ones that we cannot resolve, when we are made aware of them, we try to elevate them directly into the UC folks that can resolve those. So we're doing some things. We have been for many, many months. I think we started this process back, we started the training somewhere around April, early May. And I think we've had this process in place since then. So we're helping, but it's certainly, it's certainly not anywhere near enough. I hope that helps a little bit.
I just want to support what Frank just mentioned. First, I think this is the third or fourth time we've had Frank talk about this process since April. So I want to commend him and the labor industry staff for that. And even with bringing on the Wagner Pizer staff to help on this, I can tell you right now, it's far ahead of what other states have done. Not that it's perfect, but it's far ahead of what other states have done. As a matter of fact, this past week, I believe 3 states have fired their secretaries of labor, including Wisconsin, which fired theirs just 2 days ago because of this backlog with UC.
Wow. Wow. Well, I think, I appreciate you bringing up this point. It's an important point. And, Frank's our regional director for labor and industry from the state, and, important. Appreciate all you're doing, and obviously continuing to work on this and communicate this message, something that isn't going to get fixed overnight, but we need to keep bringing attention to it. So
Thank you, Mike. Ike and Dave for bringing those questions to the table.
yes, yes, absolutely.
This is Carrie, can I just ask a question? To your point, Deborah, like it doesn't get changed overnight, but who's running point on the change? You know, setting aside firing the Labor and Industry Secretary. Who's pushing for system change?
Earl, I think, you know, that probably is happening in terms of continued conversations. Is there anything that can be affected at the state workforce committee level to continue to communicate? You know what I'm saying? The actual committee itself that we, you know, participate in.
Yeah, from best of my knowledge, that they've had continuous conversation at the state board level. I know there's a new deputy secretary as well. And it's one of the things under her, I believe, under her auspices now. But again, that's a great question here. I don't really know who is leading the effort and leading the push. As a matter of fact, we were also asked that recently by our elected officials from the, particularly Representative Jake Wheatley has been asking the same questions.
Yeah. Well, I think, again, we should keep that, you know, up on our agenda. And when we can, we should continue to communicate that. I think you're right in terms of advocacy. We've got to keep that up there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not suggesting it's our job. Maybe it is. It just, I think we know these systems don't tend to change on their own.
Right. I agree. You're right.
Can we at least at the board level find out and get a report on how many people in Western Pennsylvania still have claims pending and the progress of resolving those claims?
Earl or Frank, is that something that we can do?
You can ask the UC office.
Okay. All right, we'll keep that in our agenda, Ike, and let's get some feedback on that. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that excellent discussion. Is there anything else, Susie, that you have for us? If not, we're going to move on to Earl and his CEO report. And I know you're going to
I'm going to bleed some of Susie's reports into this.
Okay, great.
So I just want to, first of all, thank you, Susie, and the team for that very thorough report and good snapshot of what's been happening in spite of the pandemic. And Susie made two really good points, a lot of points, but two in particular that I think will bleed into what I'm going to talk about. One is the employer buy-in on the front end, and as most of you know, when you guys brought me to town, that was one of the things this board wanted, and I think we've done a pretty good job of getting there. There's still a long ways to go. There's still lots of employers that we can bring onto our industry partnership model or advisory boards, but also can help better advise our systems on how to get that buy-in. So, and also the mentioned that on the job OJT portion. Susie's mentioned that I've had some strong meetings recently with different industries about utilizing it more. I think one of the things with OJT that, and it's not a Partner4Work thing, I think most urban workforce boards around the country, we put a lot of resources into training because that's what's needed and what's kind of desired. But we don't utilize the OJT as strategy as much as I'd say our suburban partners and our rural partners do. Those boards, it's more of a strategy and a useful tool. So I think moving forward, you'll hear more about that and you'll see more of that from the adult team and our partners. So I just wanted to mention that. So with that said, I'm going to highlight a few things that are in conjunction with that. So first, of course, I want to thank Deb and Nancy, Dr. Washington, for their work with the Pittsburgh Black Elected Official Coalition, and some really good movement focusing on three key things: transportation, childcare, and then minority and Black-owned businesses, and how to support that, and how do we really put a strategy behind that. So one of the things I think I mentioned at last board meeting, but we are now in the midst of that group is developing a research and a staffing position that we feel supplement our system very well, but also allow it to focus on those key things that the officials are wanting to focus on without any disruption to our system, but also without any the nuance that systems can bring. So we're excited, and we'll keep reporting on where that's going and how and where that's headed actually. So it's one. Also, I think I mentioned last board meeting, Partner4Work, as we start to think about our own equity and inclusion strategies within the auspices of our organization, we have created an affinity group that's made up of our internal staff. And I like to say they're putting good pressure on me to think through a lot of these systems into items. And we've also created a director of outreach and inclusion position, and that is Marquise Long, for those of you who know Marquise. And he has jumped into that position, and we are better off for it as we rethink our internal needs, but also our external items as well. So just wanted to make sure I highlighted that from the last board meeting and mention that if there are any other questions on that. So I think it was back in March, I think the March board meeting, where Laura Ellsworth mentioned the IBM Reignite Program and our desire to, one, launch that, two, to have us as the signature partner on the ground. So when Laura mentioned the project to me and said, no, isn't this exciting, and as only Laura can do, she also said, no, it'll take up a little bit of your time, maybe 5 to 10 hours a week. I think it's 5 to 10 hours a day we spent on that as an organization. And I highlight that to show all the efforts and the hard work to get the platform to this point. And so when we launched it this summer and all the good things that are happening, I wanted to highlight where things are at. So Jen could go to the next screen for me. So if you recall there you go. Thank you, Jen. So if you recall, the Reignite the Economy had 3 focus points: job seekers, nonprofits, and small minority businesses. Those were the 3 focal points. So here's where things are at. So as of right now, we've made a really strong effort with IBM, myself, our team, and Laura Ellsworth on talking to our employers, especially, again, getting that buy-in and that near guarantee that, you know, something like this is something that's useful as an onboarding tool. So right now there's a list here. Do I have it right? I think it's next list. I'll show you a list of who the employers are. But for now, we have a local advisory group made up of many key members, including members of our board: Linda Topoleski, Dr. Bullock, to name a few, Dave Copeland. I'm sure I'm forgetting 1 or 2. So that's where we're at on that. And I wanted to show you the employers that, Jen, go to the next screen so I can just reference. There we go. So here are some of the employers that we've had meetings with or have follow-up conversations that are getting deeper into the type of content that can connect to what the individual employers are already utilizing. How do we help enhance their existing programs? So these are the employers that we've met with, in most cases, multiple times, and are still going through those conversations and sometimes negotiations. So I want to give you an idea of who the employers are, who the key providers are on the ground. And then the other piece is with our employers also looking at their supply chain and their minority companies that they're working with, and the supplier diversity side, and how do we start to bring this platform into those conversations as well. So employers, providers, small businesses, this is where things are at so far. I'll stop there on the IBM project if there's any questions, clarifications. But I want to thank Kat and Katie and some of the others who have opened their doors to this conversation and to the orientation from the team at IBM and also from us.
Girl, if there are additional employers who are interested in connecting with that, how does that work?
Just let me know, and we'll make that reach out. So I'm glad you asked that, because we're at a team meeting yesterday, and I think Linda and Dr. Bullock were on that call, and I think IBM is I think they're getting close to capacity. But I said, well, no, we have 100 more employers who are ready to have this conversation, so get ready.
Okay.
So we'll push their capacity because it's where things are going. But thank you, Deb, for that.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? But this is just a snapshot of where things are at to date. Okay. So I wanted to start with IBM because that's the hot ticket right now. But all of this is under the guise of our Ready to Work coalition, which we started at the onset of the pandemic, and so under the auspices, we've moved from an immediate phase to what we call an intermediate phase, which is really where we're taking different initiatives and giving building capacity, giving push providing resources too. So Reignite was one major one. There's Susie referenced this with our BEP initiative with the public sector side. So we're really trying to figure out our public sector, public safety pieces. So right now there's some major pushes on the public safety strategy. Majestic, I'm not sure Majestic on the call or not, but that's happening at the city level with support from the Yule Foundation and many others. And so we're hoping to insert our police ambassador intern model into that larger public safety strategy. And that's basically where individuals will go through a transitional job strategy over a period of time, which will lead to employment, subsidized employment on the front end, but hopefully lead to employment within public safety, public sector departments, particularly in the police department, whether it's going into the police officer role or other police department positions. So that's still being developed, but it's gaining lots of momentum. We even have a fundraising group subgroup that's developing from this. So we just wanted to highlight that as it comes together under Ready to Work, and more information to come on that larger strategy. And then last major highlight is on the economic development front. So we've formed a subgroup made up of all the key economic development players in this area. Lance Chimka at Allegheny County, leadership at URA, leadership from the city planning office, and also from Bridgeway Capital. And the idea there is, as these groups start to provide grants and support to companies, particularly minority and Black-owned companies, we want to make sure that we have a workforce strategy built into that support as those companies start to either solidify or ramp up and are looking for talent. So I know I'm jumping around. There's so many highlights to this, but those are the three I want to focus on.
Earl,
Go ahead.
Yeah, question for you. On the public sector police ambassador program, there's as you well know, there's a lot going on around, police hiring, police fitness, and that kind of stuff. Where the line says inclusion in a multi-component public safety approach, does that include, whether or not participants are fit or pass the psychological profiles and all that kind of thing?
Since that's is built into the overall employee relations guidelines, my understanding is yes. On the front end, we're not sure how that's going to play out. We're still in the early stage of that, but I would imagine we're going to follow the same guidelines that are presently in place at the Public Safety Commission and also on employee relations.
Yeah, it's really needed. I mean, the ability to hire police officers, good police officers, is really very difficult for any municipality or anybody. So It's important, but at the same time, I just like to be assured that in whatever we're doing, we're paying attention to the concerns that people have about who is actually being cleared and gatewayed for these kinds of jobs.
Yeah, great point. But definitely getting more information to come on that.
Would this program include security guards as well? So some organizations like the Cultural Trust, like the universities in town, have quite large security forces. Would they be included in this program as well?
Not directly, Dr. Washington, but there have been conversations around the need for security occupation. I think if we think about some of the conversations we've had early on with the Lower Hill redevelopment, that was one of the occupations that were brought to the forefront. So not directly in this program, but there are conversations around that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, is this partly to increase diversity in general with not just the police force, but all of the services and other staff surrounding community policing?
Yes, in general, those details are still getting worked out, Linda, but in general, yes. Policing, police department in general, and other public safety occupations will be all in consideration, absolutely. And may grow from there into other departments also. We'll see where it goes, but right now, with the support of the police chief and some of the other initiatives, That's where it's going to start, but who knows where it can go from there. All right. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah. Hey Tom, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing? So thanks for everything, all the great work of the whole team and the board. Just wanted to mention that the Steel Valley Authority, through our 5 offices for the Strategic Early Warning Network, the SOAN program, which helps manufacturing businesses stay in business. And we've been pretty busy, by the way. Wanted to let you know that we've launched a manufacturing worker safety box program. And the effort was inspired by a survey that we conducted back in June, which showed that 80% of the companies in the Commonwealth that we surveyed felt the cost of PPE would significantly affect their bottom line. So we've been seeking donations of PPE materials basically to bring together boxes. And we've had some of our former clients step up with materials, manufacturing those materials, as well as the Department of Labor and Industry. So if you'd like to, to donate, whether you donate actual materials or dollars to help pay for those materials, we will distribute those boxes. We have been distributing those boxes through our 5 offices across the state, identifying companies that are in the most need. And we're also setting up calls with labor union to try to distribute those boxes through labor unions. So you can reach us through our Chief of Staff, Carrie Mahalko, 412-342-0534, or you can email her at admin@steelvalley.org. So thank you very much for anything you can do to help us with this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. So I just want to mention a couple other items. So we're hoping to start their strategic planning process. So at the next board executive committee meeting, we will take up that conversation on what that process would entail and the timing of that. But I wanted to alert the board that my goal is to have that process started and hopefully completed by early 2021. But we will talk about that at the next executive committee meeting on what that process can and will look like moving forward. So I just wanted to communicate that is going to happen, and we're excited to get that started. And then lastly, we talk about signature solutions and industry partnerships. I don't have the screen here, but in your board book, I believe around page 12, Jen can confirm that we do have information on the companies that are part of our industry partnerships. So the ones that are advising us in our sectoral work, and also some of the other programs that are being developed. Jack, I don't know if you have information handy, if you want to just give a quick highlight or two, since I don't have that handy.
I don't have it up right now, Earl.
Okay. So Jen, is that page 12 for references?
It is. Page 12, beginning on page 12, starts your fund development report and industry partnership snapshot. Okay.
So again, I just wanted to mention a list of who the companies are that we're working with, some of the industry players we're working with, and then the fund development side, just a snapshot of some of the opportunities that we've secured, some you've approved earlier today, and also some items that are forthcoming in our robust fund development strategy and report. So just wanted to highlight those items for you. Before I conclude, any other questions or comments?
Earl, maybe Jen can also identify the page that the fund development report is.
Page 12. Begins on page 12.
Okay.
All right, thank you both. And great questions in chat. I appreciate the questions from everyone. So if we haven't answered your question, we will follow up and get those answered more succinctly today.
Thanks, Earl.
Okay. All right, Deb, thank you. She's saying something brilliant. We just can't hear her.
Sorry, I said thank you so much, Earl and the team. Thank you for telling me I was on mute. So we're moving on to other board business and public comment at this point. And so I wanted to ask if any board members have any new business or wanted to bring anything up for discussion at this point. If not, I again want to thank Earl and the team for this very robust work. There's just a lot of really exciting initiatives. Are you?
I was going to acknowledge our guests who are on the call today.
Yeah.
I can't list all of you, but I know you're there because I've seen some of your faces and you acknowledge that in the chat. So thank you for joining us today.
Okay, great. Any other comments or questions from the board? If not, I wanted to ask if there was any public comment. Okay, hearing none, we are giving everybody back, Earl, unless I hear otherwise, 20 minutes of time.
Consider that an early fall present.
Jen, anything else for us of the good of the order?
No, thank you everyone for your time.
All right.
Thank you all for your good work.
Yeah. All right. I will ask for an adjournment then. Thank you all very much. So move in a second and
Second.
Presume we're all in favor. So goodbye. See you all in December at the next meeting and at committee meetings in the interim. Thanks so much, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.